Okay, so we just got done looking at the argument from motion, right? And there we saw the logic of the unmoved mover, which, by the way, is an argument that comes from Aristotle. It came from the opening pages of a work called the Metaphysics, which we did not study in this class because there's only so much you can do in any given survey course. But if you recall, we had said in one of the earlier videos, and the textbook got into this as well, that Aquinas had, well, he didn't like discover, but other people were aware of Aristotle, but he saw the significance of Aristotle and used a lot of Aristotle as well as other ancient philosophers in his work. So anyways, it's not actually his original argument, this unmoved mover. That's Aristotle's. Now where I want to continue on, so we looked at that one. We're still on the proofs of the existence of God on page 469 in that PDF, right? No, actually, that was the first one, motion. We're on 470 for the second way. And really, the second way from what is called efficient cause is kind of the same logic as the first one. And it kind of goes like this. So, everything that exists, so everything existing is caused by something else. Okay, good enough? So let's suppose, as an example, we have this guy here. There he is. This guy was caused by things. Like, really, if you think about the causes that go into a person, it's phenomenal, the amount of causes, right? Just think of, you need each strand of DNA to do what it's supposed to do. You need, the conception to go as it's supposed to go. Then you need, for the parents to meet, and then you need for there to be nutrition. It's phenomenal. But anyways, so we're going to simplify it and we go, so every human being needs a mother and father. And now, I know politically today we could say with LBGYN and all that stuff, right? Well, perhaps, no, of course you don't need a father. Well, no, you do. You perhaps not in your life, but you need a father. And you need a mother. That's how human beings come into existence. We can try to obscure that a little bit. Even test tube babies, you still need a sperm, and you still need a ovum. So end of story. But anyways, I'm not going political here. So we can say, okay, so this guy is caused by these two guys, people. Then each of these, in turn, is caused by two people, right? And then each of these, in turn, is caused by two, and caused by two, and et cetera, et cetera. And then you'd have to say sort of infinitely, right? So you'd say, for every human being, right? So we could say this statement. Every person has a father. Again, it's not a political statement. It's a truth. They don't have to be in your life, and we could argue over what we mean by father. Here, I simply mean it biologically. So every person has a father, right? We can say, okay, well, that's a truth. You cannot conceive of anyone that doesn't have a father. So that would mean that for every human being, this guy here has a father. Okay. Which would mean that if this is true, then there would never be somebody who doesn't have a father. Ergo, this process would go back infinitely. Which would mean that the human race has been here infinitely, which we don't believe to be true. So the question then becomes, when he starts talking about ultimate causes and immediate causes there on page 470, but ultimately he says, but if inefficient causes, it is possible to go on to infinity, there will be no first efficient cause. That's the whole thing here. Neither will there be an ultimate effect nor any intermediate efficient causes, all of which is plainly false. Therefore, it is necessary to admit a first efficient cause to which everyone gives the name God. So in this example, we'd say, well, no, this is wrong. You can't have this going back to infinity. There must be a first cause of humanity, and that's him. And in scriptures, he's called Adam. And Adam, of course, was shazammed into existence by the hand of God. That's supposed to be God's hand right there. And so therefore, there's a first efficient cause. Now, this example I'm using in terms of humanity, right? But you could think of this of any existing thing in general. Therefore, there must be God who caused all things and was the first cause then to get the whole chain of events going until here's this guy today. So that's that one. That's the second way of efficient cause. Then the third way is possibility and necessity, and it's basically the same thing. If you take all things are possible to exist, right? Okay, so you take this tree here, right? Is it necessary that this tree exists? And the answer is no. It's not necessary at all. Is it necessary that there's oxygen in the atmosphere? And the answer is no, it's not. It's good for us that there is oxygen, but the steps from not oxygen to oxygen, there's millions of steps. The bacteria, way back billions of years, the plants for millions of years, and all that sort of thing. So when we talk necessary in philosophy, we're talking about an absolute necessity of this type. Consider this for a second. Okay, so is it necessary that there's oxygen? No. But is it necessary that 2 and 2 equals 4? Yes. There's no other logical possibility for the fact that 2 plus 2 equals 4, if that kind of makes sense. So, when he's talking about, all things are possible, essentially he means physical things. So our tree is possible. So in order for our tree could either then be or not be, either way, it's up to other things. So there's all of these millions of other factors that go into creating the tree. And each one of these factors is also a possible existent, if that kind of makes sense. So for the tree to exist right now, there's all kinds of millions and millions of factors that came together, which are themselves possible. So if you follow this all the way back, and then for this possibility, there's these other possibilities, etc. All these things, if you go all the way back, had to line up to a necessary being, because there had to be a necessary thing, which then gave existence to all of these other things that all came together to produce this tree. That's basically how the logic there goes. Okay. And the fourth way is actually very similar from the gradation of things. Let's cut to the chase on the fifth way. The fifth way, he says, is taken from the governance of the world. Okay, so what does he mean by that? Essentially, this is what's called the intelligent design theory. So the intelligent design theory goes like this, right? As he says, the fifth way taken from governance of the world, we see that things which lack knowledge, such as natural bodies, act for an end, and this is evident from their acting always or nearly always in the same way to obtain the best result. Okay, so here is a hamburger, and here's a guy, right? And the guy's hungry, and so he's going to go and get him a hamburger, and he does so by will, right? So he chooses to go and get a hamburger. All right, but that doesn't always work for all living things, right? That's the sun. Here is a sunflower, right? And it's growing toward the sun. But the thing about the sunflower is the sunflower has no will, right? It's programmed to seek its own good. This guy, you could argue, is not programmed. I mean, then you get into these things about instinct and everything. But for sake of argument, let's just say he chooses the hamburger. Well, the flower doesn't choose the sun. But in moving toward the sun, it is doing its good. So in either case, each of these things pursues its good. One by choice, one by being programmed or determined is usually what philosophers say. Now, we know a little bit more about it. Today, we would call it probably DNA, right? But nevertheless, if we say that DNA determines things, it's the same difference. So the deal is, well, if this guy uses his intelligence to decide what to do, right? What does this guy use? And at the end of the day, God, his intelligence. In other words, whoops, I can't fit that in there. So God decided and determined how this flower would seek its good. He set up the whole system by which these guys can acquire their needs. And his point is, Aquinas' point is, it cannot be by chance. It's far too complex. If you consider the whole biosphere, right, of the earth and the universe in general, there's no way that this could have happened by chance. So in other words, although these were not fashionable yet, things like evolution and natural design were not yet really in vogue. But his point is that the whole system of nature is way too complex to be chance. Therefore, there must be some deliberate, intelligent design, because it's just too coincidental that flowers grow toward the sun. That's basically it in a nutshell. And in those 5 ways, there you have the 5 proofs of the existence of God from Aquinas.